go through that process over the next few months. So we thank him for the time that we had him. With that, I'll move on to item number 3, approval of the meeting minutes from the January 2023 or January 23 of 2024 meeting. With those who are new, who have not taken the oath of office yet, as you were not on that, we'll have you abstain from the vote on these minutes.
Got nothing.
You've got nothing?
Is that a first?
I should comment that my name was spelled wrong a lot, so I just wanted to make it right. So if anybody
Thank
ever
you for
emailed
that.
me or anything,
Yes.
it's SEN instead of SON, and it's in there. But I'm
Thank-
sure staff will get it corrected. So
We will make sure that is noted for the
You've got that, Aaron?
company that does the translation.
Thank you.
Thank you. So for those listening, and it's
EN.
SEN. Thank you. All right. So with that, was there a motion for approval with the amendment of the SEN?
So moved.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, those are our minutes approved. Moving on, item number 4, we have oath of office for recently appointed Commissioner Kory Jorgenson and Brian Downie. Did I say that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, Brian. Aaron?
Yes. You guys both have a copy of this on your, if you want to stand and raise your right hand. And recite the oath of office. I will assist you.
I will assist you.
I state your name.
I, Kory Jorgenson,
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Minnesota,
and the state of Minnesota,
and faithfully discharge the duties as a member of the City of East Bethel Planning Commission
and faithfully discharge the duties as a member of the East Bethel Planning Commission
in the County of Anoka
in the
in
county
the County of Anoka
and the state of Minnesota
and the state of Minnesota
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
It's official. Welcome.
Yes, welcome,
Thank
both of
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
And again, I know I mentioned this earlier, but in all seriousness, don't be afraid to ask questions or how-tos on stuff. Again, we've all been here and we're all here to help each other, so. Got something to say, we do want to hear it. So, with that, we will move on to item 5, the Planning Commission appointment of a chair and vice chairpersons. Typically at, let's see, here are we at, City Code Section 273 requires appointment of chairperson to serve for 1 year, and will be the same for the vice chair. Aaron, I'll let you
Yeah.
pick it up from there, and then we'll have set appointments.
Very good. The chairperson shall be chosen from the committee and or commission member annually to serve for a 1-year term, provided that the chairperson shall be elected who has not completed at least a 1-year term as a member of the commission or committee. Also, a vice chairperson is to be appointed to act as the chairperson in the event that a particular individual is absent from a meeting. The commission is requested to appoint tonight a chairperson and vice chair to serve for a 1-year term ending January 31st, 2025.
Great. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Gabriel as vice chair. As in a previous conversation, although he's not here tonight, he indicated he had an interest in that spot.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Gabe, thank you. He'll be back hopefully at the next meeting. So, and then moving on to the chairperson. Unless anyone else has any interest, I would like to nominate Sharon as our chairperson, who's done an awesome job as our vice chair for the last few years and ready to succeed. So,
A second.
thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. The comm is yours.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm going to shift down here.
Oh.
There goes the neighborhood.
And at the next meeting, I'll move down to the end and Glenn will, or Gabe will move over to here.
We'll get it all figured out. Absolutely.
Well, thank you, and I too am going to ask you folks help, especially with helping me structure the meeting correctly, but what we will go on to is the public hearing, and Aaron's going to talk about
Yep,
that.
I have a staff report here for you. On or about December 20th of 2023, Andrew Bennick dropped off an application for a kennel interim use permit here at City Hall. City staff researched the information and provided in the application through city code and the process for getting a commercial kennel operation approval. Since Mr. Bennick's intended on kenneling other individuals' dogs beside his own, he met the definition in city code of a commercial kennel. I have provided you the definitions of private and commercial kennel in the packet. A commercial kennel means any place where a person accepts dogs from the general public and keeps such dogs for the purposes of boarding. And a private kennel means any place where more than 2 dogs over 4 months of age are kept and harbored, providing that such animals are owned by the owner or leasee of the premises on which they are being kept or harbored. Article 2, Dogs, Division 2, Section 10-54, under a kennel license. Subdivision E, no private kennel licenses shall be issued on parcels of 2.5 acres or less. No commercial kennel licenses shall be issued in zoning districts other than commercial or industrial zones. The city shall not approve variances to allow for private kennel licenses on parcels less than 2.5 acres and shall not approve variances or other zoning devices to allow commercial kennel licenses in zones other than commercial and industrial districts. Mr. Bennick's property is 4.35 acres and is located in the rural residential zoning district of the city. He was advised that due to the location of his property, he could not be issued an IUP for a commercial kennel. Mr. Bennick agreed to withdraw his application and asked for a map of commercial and industrial zones of the city, to which he was provided. On or about January 18th of 2024, the city started receiving phone calls about social media advertising by Mr. Bennick for dog bathing, dog care, and boarding under the business name Courts Camp Dog Care with an accompanying website. Although the website used the location of East Bethel, it did not provide a specific address for the facility. City staff confirmed with the Minnesota Secretary of State business filings that the business registered office was in fact Mr. Bennick's residence on January 8th of 2024. Contact was made with Mr. Bennick on January 19th of 2024, advising him that the commercial kennel was not permitted in a residential zone. Mr. Bennick responded asking what steps he could take in an attempt to get an approval. He was advised that administratively staff cannot authorize a commercial kennel. However, the city council, through its process, could hear the request and make an alternate determination. On January 24th of 2024, Mr. Bennick delivered another application and the associated fees for an IUP commercial kennel to be located at 625 221st Avenue Northeast. If approved in terms of a private kennel interim use permit, Mr. Bennick's property would permit 4 dogs belonging to him and not customers or someone of the general public. Staff is recommending the Planning Commission hold a public hearing, discuss the IUP request, and consider a recommendation of denial to the City Council for a commercial kennel in a residential district.
Thank you, and now we're going to have the public hearing part where people can come up and talk to the issue. If you do, please make sure that your name was on this paper, and if it wasn't, come up and put it on after you're done speaking. So would anyone like to come up and address the issue?
You might want to just call them out strictly in order on the sheet to give them an opportunity. Okay.
And if you just step up to the podium, please, and kind of speak into the microphone.
You bet.
Thank
First
you.
of all, congratulations to you 3,
Thank you.
and good luck with your careers from here forward. My name is Ronald Snowdy. I live at 22277 Washington Street, Northeast. My wife Darcy's here tonight with me. we're dog owners. We love dogs. We've loved them ever since I was a kid. I have nothing against anybody that owns their dogs. The only thing I ask is people that have dogs, watch their dogs, make sure they don't bark and interrupt other people's lives. Since the 8 years we've lived in East Bethel, that in our neighborhood has become a problem. I live probably 300 yards from Andrew as the crow flies, and quite frankly, there's several dogs in our neighborhood now that are nuisance dogs that are barking. With winter here, I can't really call the sheriff or the city and say, hey, they're barking, because we're not outside in the winter. Come spring, we like to be out in our yard. We're out in our yard all the time. We have people over, we're on the deck, and some people leave their dogs out and they bark for 2-3 hours. And the city allows them to have these dogs, but then it seems like the city right there, it stops. There was a neighbor next to Andrew who had a kennel license, and I'd called the police on them before and they were fined, and those people got a kennel license. I will say, since they did get a kennel license, I have not heard the barking back there, and I appreciate that from them as a neighbor. For commercial dogs, I'm against it. I'm totally against it. I feel bad for him that he would like to do this in his property, and I understand that. But like I said, this barking and disturbing our house and the people that want peace and quiet. I think my house is my castle. I worked hard for a long time to have that castle, and I don't want to be interrupted by people who have too many dogs or can't watch them. And we'll leave it at that. I thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Great, thank you very much.
Yep, you're welcome.
Aaron, I have to say, I'm a little bit confused is the commercial where he wants to have the kennel actually at his residence?
That's
then?
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, does anyone else want to come up and speak? Okay, please do. Hi.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Smith. I live at 711 221st Avenue. My property surrounds the one that is up for discussion tonight. We border on 2 of the 3 sides. Andy's a great neighbor. He's very responsible. I think that he would be a very good kennel person. I think that the city needs to have that. They need to have the ability for people to have their dogs boarded locally. If there's going to be a problem, he would respond to it. And I really don't think that he's going to be a problem anyway. He has dogs now like I do. His dogs are quiet. He takes care of them. I certainly don't have any problem being his next door neighbor. We enjoy him. When you talk about dogs being a nuisance in the summertime or in the wintertime, I listen to everybody's four-wheelers. Sometimes in the winter I'd listen to their snowmobiles. It's just part of living in the country. There are noises. If there's a problem, talk to your neighbors. Say, hey, you know what, this is bothering me. It's just important. I'm completely for him. That's all I got.
Okay. Thank
you.
you very
Yeah.
much.
Thanks, Kristen.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else wanting to come up? Great. Thank you. And there's somebody coming up in the back, and then we'll get you next.
Hi, my name is Scott Snyder. I live at 22394 7th Street. And I'm probably out of earshot of what we're talking about tonight, but what I wanted to talk to you about, and I guess what's happening here, it brought it to mind, is I'm getting concerned about creep, the industrial creep we've got going on in this city. It's people opening up home-based businesses. And so, although I can't address the specific of this meeting, but just in my neighborhood alone, we have an industrial equipment repair business. We have an automotive repair business that actually employs people. We have a sign business that, and this involves flatbed trucks and other things coming in Dewey. I don't know if you know 7th Street and that, the Northern Boundaries neighborhood. Are you familiar with it? It's not built for that. And all these businesses, I brought this up before, but it fell on deaf ears because of the new city council coming in. We can discuss that at a different time. My concern is, what is this planning commission looking at doing? Are we gonna continue to allow businesses opening up in residential neighborhoods? What is your definition of a residential neighborhood? And are we gonna abandon that once we've decided, well, we got people that wanna have a business? Well, there's a lot of us who have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in our property. And it's an established fact that when you have a residential business or residential house and somebody opens a business next door, your property values go down. According to the National Association of Realtors, anywhere between 5 and 7%. That's a big chunk of money. So my question to you is, what are you gonna do? What's the plan going forward?
Okay, Scott, thank you for that. And normally what we do in a public hearing is we'll take the questions and then kind of answer them all at the end if there's
Right.
similar questions. Yours is a little bit off the topic, but
is.
I think we will take the time and address that at the end of this, if that's okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi there, my name's Andy Bennick. I'm the property owner of 625 221st Avenue Northeast. And I am, a little bit of background about myself. I grew up in this community. I've been playing hockey since the age of 4 at the East Bethel Ice Arena. I spent a lot of my summers in childhood volunteering at the East Bethel Recycling Center. I graduated from St. Francis High School in 2010. From there I went on and got my bachelor's degree in zoology, where I studied animal behavior and veterinary medicine. I've spent the last 15 years managing the UPS store in Coon Rapids, and now I'm looking into getting into the work that I really love and am passionate about. I have my entire 5-acre property fenced in for the safety and security of dogs that would be staying with me. I have a cold storage outbuilding with kennels inside where I can separate dogs during feeding time. Other than that, dogs are not going to be kenneled. They'll all be roaming free on my property. They'll be sleeping inside my house at night. And that's a huge issue of noise complaints and noise issues with commercial kennels, is when they're all separated in kennels for hours and hours each day. And that will not be the case in my facility.
Okay. Is it appropriate for us to ask questions?
You
of
sure
Debbie
can.
right
Yep.
now?
For sure.
Absolutely.
I'd like to know, what kind of breeds of dogs are you gonna have there then?
I personally have 3 mixed breeds.
Mhm.
I have an Australian Shepherd Border Collie mix, I have a Black Lab Golden Retriever mix, and then I have a Boxer Black Lab mix. Other than that, I will take any breed, really. I have studied animal behavior, and it's not really the breed of the dog that determines how they're going to act. You can just study any dog's body language and determine if there's going to be an aggressive dog or a bad interaction. And all of those are preventable if you know the signs to look for and watch.
Mhm.
And if you spend the time with the animals and not just have them locked away in a kennel all day, I plan on spending all of the hours with them outside on the property or inside. They'll never be left unattended. And I watch a lot of friends and family dogs right now, and I have hundreds of videos of all my dogs enjoying their time running free on 5 acres of land. And in most of my videos, there's a lot of dogs in the distance barking because they're just left outside while their owners are sitting inside, and that's what they think is good exercise for their dogs, is just being outdoors. But you need to physically be out there with them, entertaining them, and relieving them. So.
Do you, gentlemen, have some questions on either side? I've got some more, but go ahead.
If you were ill or on vacation, well, I guess you wouldn't have them if you were on vacation, but if
Yeah.
you were ill, who would do that job of being outside with them?
Well, if I was ill, I would still be able to take care of the dogs. Most dogs can sense if somebody is sick, and they just back off and have a more calm demeanor around a sick individual. So I have been sick personally with my 3 dogs, and I don't need to get somebody else to watch them while I'm sick. I can still take care of their feeding and exercise time outside as long as I'm with them.
Okay, so if I'm looking at the history right in here, originally you had applied, retracted the application knowing that it wasn't going to be approved.
Well, it went a little different than that. I
Okay.
came to the city in the summer of 2023, where I spoke to a female, I don't know her name. She told me she had never been through a kennel license process. So then she got me in contact with Aaron Berg, who also told me he has never been through the process of a kennel license, and told me that I needed to, in order to get my 2024 license, I'd have to submit my kennel license by December 24th of 2023. So I went and started building my company and advertising and submitted my kennel license in the week of December 20th. And then that's where Aaron found the information where I live. I cannot have a commercial kennel license. And he apologized, told me he should have told me that months in advance when I told the city of East Bethel what I was planning on doing. But they weren't informed on what was required to have a commercial kennel license.
Okay.
So Aaron, how many dogs would you house at maximum, counting your 3?
That would be in the terms of our IUP. We have not gotten that far yet.
Okay.
So I can't determine how many dogs I can have at my property. I think that's gonna be up to your guys' IUP conditions.
Okay.
But I would follow those strictly. I wouldn't go against. I mean, there's a lot of people who are watching dogs inside of their house and not applying for commercial kennel license. I wanna do everything right and appropriate, and I would follow rules that
How many would you like to have?
Ideally, I would like to have between 6 and 10.
Okay, that's all I had.
That was a good question.
With the, in the, pardon me, in the event of an approval, the presence of more dogs, I can only see that adding to more barking. Are there processes or plans in place to contain or minimize the amount of barking that may come with such an approval?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I have experienced is not kenneling dogs and having them separated. That's when dogs are continuously barking and freaking out because they want to exercise, they want to be out with their pack, they want to be outside. So that's going to be the biggest thing at my facility is they're going to be kenneled during feeding time, so there's no fights. And other than that, there's going to be 0 kenneling. They will not be separated. I'm going to be outside interacting with them. Dogs are very simple. They need love, they need attention, and they need exercise. And if you meet all of those needs, barking is not an issue.
Yeah, I had 2 golden retrievers, and it seemed like the happier they were, the louder they got. So.
Oh, well. I have 3 of the happiest dogs that I've ever met, and I don't think you'll ever hear their voice.
So, okay.
But I would love for your dogs to come check out my property.
Good. I'll wait till we have our discussion.
Okay. So Andy, what do you see could go wrong with this whole thing?
I personally have not experienced anything that could go wrong when I've watched dogs. I don't call myself an animal expert, but I'm kind of an animal expert. So.
Well, it seems like you've certainly studied it well.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody will argue the credentials.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of issues that happen when I watch dogs.
How many animals do you think, or how many dogs have you had, including your 3? And you mentioned while watching friends and family's dogs as well. At most, what do you think you've had at any one time currently?
Well, not at my property, but under my surveillance, I've watched 18 dogs just myself.
In one location?
One location, sleepovers and all, not just daily daycare.
And how much at your location?
My location, the most I've had is, well, it's tough. I've had a lot of friends and family like come over and hang out at my facility. They bring their dogs, so it's not just me watching dogs, but I think probably 13 is the most that have been around. I have a skating rink in my backyard, so friends come over and it's all
sure.
fenced in,
Yep.
so it's a very safe environment for them to bring their dogs, so I allow people to bring their dogs over. So yeah, probably about 13 has been.
Have you ever had a dog jump over the fence or get out a gate or anything?
No, my perimeter fence is just under 6 feet, and within my fencing, the whole perimeter fencing, I have different sections of yards that's fenced in. So if a dog were to get over a fence, they're going to have to get through at least 2, maybe 3 other fences to fully escape.
Mhm.
But I have yet to have a friend or family's dog who wants to leave my property once they arrive.
Okay.
Dogs are very simple.
Okay. Do you have anything else that you'd like to say?
I think that's really it. I mean, I would invite all of you to come over and tour my property and see everything that I've got there. And if you do have dogs and this goes well, I would love to give them a nice vacation if you ever had to spend time away from them.
Okay. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ann.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, does anyone else want to come up?
Hi, I'm Bob Knight. Is this thing on?
Yes.
Yep.
We won't hear you now.
I live there, and Andy lives there. Crotch Rockets and Hogs live there. Life has annoyances, and people gotta live. And, living in the middle of all that, there's the occasional dog barking, and it's even been mine. Dogs bark, they eat, they poop. And people need the things that they have to enjoy their lives. And I think that a small business that helps people enjoy their lives and maybe spend a week in Florida when it's a typical February, I think it's a good thing. And he's a great guy. I've known him from the UPS store, and I've known him now as a neighbor, and he's responsible to a fault. And I think that's what you need if your animals are noisy, or if anything you're doing is an annoyance or a disturbance to your surrounding people. You respond and you address it. And I think he's the kind of guy that would do that. And I would welcome his business backing right up to my home.
Thank you very much, Bob.
Thank you.
Dave or Vicky, did either one of you want to come up? Okay. Sounds good. Okay, it's all good. Okay.
Did you want to come up and speak, ma'am?
Yep.
Yeah.
Tammy Gempel, 22359 Baton Street. I'm here to support Andy. I don't know him, but I saw that it was coming up, and I looked through. I actually had come to planning. It was several years ago to change the ordinance for the commercial kennel part. It's all just wording. I looked at Ham Lake, Oak Grove, St. Francis, some of our surrounding cities, to find out what they did, because people are doing it right now. Look up Rovers. There are people right on East Bethel that are boarding. They're just not doing it right like Andy's trying to do. The national average is 1.46 dogs per household. That's a lot of dogs in the city of East Bethel. And, you know, everyone here wants a grocery store and this and that. People want to board their dogs. The fact that he can advertise and he was getting people that want to board says people want to board their dogs. To have a nice place like his that you can bring your dog to and it be safe. You guys put the IUP together, put the stipulations in there so that you're happy with it, the city's happy with it. The 3 complaints you get on dogs, I do animal control, are dogs barking, dogs running loose, and dog bites. And I've been here over 20 years, and I have a kennel, and you don't hear the dogs barking at my place. The people you hear dogs barking are the people that own 1 or 2 dogs. And it's random throughout the city. And everyone has that in every neighborhood. And it's not the kennels. It's not the people that come in and do the kennel licensing. It's just people that have dogs. So do up an IUP for them that you guys are happy with, that the city can be happy with, and stipulations like you do for everything else, and that can be revoked if something goes wrong. He appears to know what he's doing, and he has a lot of support here. I think you guys ought to consider him.
Thank you, Tammy, I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you for letting me come up. My name was not on the paper. I'm Pam Kalaji, 485 224th Lane, Northeast, East Bethel, Minnesota.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Kolod, Z as in zebra, I-E-J as in Jack.
Thank you.
Okay. I am absolutely sure that you are a very responsible person, and I am not questioning in the least that you wouldn't be a qualified kennel, and you would absolutely take care of your dogs to the best of your abilities. I've used the Armstrong kennel. I believe in kennels. I like to have my dogs someplace safe. I have no objections to that at all. My objection is the way this is coming down. I live in that neighborhood. I am 0.7 miles from him, right? According to the Google Maps. I am in a residential area. We don't have a lot of arm frame around what we're going to be allowing and what we're not. This feels, and I'm sorry, it feels like it's coming in the back door. I've done it, now I want my license. That's what I'm concerned about. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else? Go ahead.
My name is Joe Minch. I live at 22218 Quincy Street. So I'm just a little bit north of the property. I grew up in a small family business, so I respect what Andrew's trying to do here. But I also, I moved to East Bethel 4 months ago, and moved to where I moved in East Bethel for a little bit of space, a little bit of quiet, peace and quiet after the loss of my wife. And suddenly, something that's zoned residential, there's this potential for a commercial business being in it. And as the previous speaker said, this whole process seems to be kind of going backwards right now. Residential area is important to people, working families. They need their sleep. That's where they live. I walk a lot in the neighborhood. I walk a couple, 3 miles a night, and just out of the blue, just out of example, there was just a dog the other night that was barking the entire hour I was walking. I could hear it the entire walk, and that's just one dog. I know as a former dog owner, we would nip that in the bud, and I don't understand why people don't do that. But I don't know what would happen if this got out of control. I know the police can only do so much. So I just have some concerns. ask that you respectfully consider them.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? No? Okay, go ahead. Oh, there's two people, so I'll look at you next.
My name is Jillian. Technically, I am not a resident of East Bethel, but I've grown up in this community. My parents still live in Lake George. I wanted to come and support Andy. I'm not able to have children, so my dog is my child. Andy has watched my dog for me when I've not been able to care for him or when I've been on vacation. And it's a place that I know that my dog is safe. If you've ever looked at some of these other commercial kennels, they put your dog in a 4x6 cement box and let them outside in a very small fenced area with not even real grass. And to just have something that Andy's trying to do and create such a special place is very important to me, because it's about my family member, which is my dog. And I don't think any of you would want your children to go to a cement box for a daycare or for boarding while you guys are off on vacation or working all day. So it's something that's just not available anywhere else. And I know he's responsible. He sends me videos of my animal when he has watched them, and there are no dogs barking. I understand the concern being a residential area and the noise, but I mean, 221st is a very busy street. There's also a railroad that's not very far away either. Like, are we gonna go after the railroads for the noise they make? It just seems silly to talk about dogs that are barking, and we don't even know that these dogs barking are coming from his kennel. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have one more person in the back that would like to speak.
Hi, I'm not on the list. My name is Pastor Caroline Holmes. We are the church right there on the corner of Quincy and 221st. And so I've been in the neighborhood, walked the neighborhood, met several people in the area. Almost everybody has dogs in that area. We also, personally, our family, we board our dog in East Bethel at Nieder's Pet Sitting. I hope I'm not calling out my friend, but she lives in what appears to me a residential area, and I love boarding my dog there. It sounds like a property like yours. You know, I could bring my dog there. It's in a beautiful fenced-in area. It's a very home-like environment. My dog sleeps in her house. And I love it, but it's in what looks like to me a residential area. But it's just very well maintained, and I think we get the idea of a commercial business, and I'm also a business owner too, and we have this image of people coming and going and traffic and whatever comes in our heads, but it doesn't sound like that's the kind of environment that you're creating, and that's not the kind of environment that I bring my dog to. And also I live in Andover, and I have a commercial, dog people. They have dogs near me, and they're the most responsible dog owners in our entire neighborhood. The dogs, anytime the dogs are barking in our neighborhood, I don't know what the guy does. He does some kind of magic whistle, and they are done immediately. And so much more responsible than your typical dog owner that lets their dogs just run out of control and bark and bark and bark. So I just love the idea of having something like this in our neighborhoods. I don't know how many are. It'd be interesting to find out what the dynamics are in East Bethel in particular, as far as kennels, commercial kennels in residential areas, what that ratio is. But I personally love it, and that's where I bring my dog.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? No? Okay. If not, I just want to thank everybody for speaking. I know there's different opinions, and everybody was very respectful. I'm so glad the kids came actually today, and they can kind of be part of democracy, right? Planning Commission is kind of special. It's where you all get a chance really to get up on the microphone, even if you're nervous like I am a lot of the time. This is where your voice will be heard. And one of our city council members, Jim Smith, is back there. He will be talking about this at the next city council meeting. So you've got a chance to get his ear tonight too. So it's really important that you did that. Okay. So with that, I think we'll close the public hearing and we will open the discussion. Is there anyone who wants to make a motion to open the discussion?
I'll make a motion to open for discussion on the item.
Is there-
Second?
Okay, so there's a motion and second, and we will open the discussion on this IUP.
Okay, and again, just Brian and Cory again, so a lot of times we'll open with the discussion, just otherwise, we do it one of two ways. We either just have a motion, whether approve or denial, once there's a second, and then it's open for discussion, and then we'll call for the vote after that. But a lot of times, there's so much discussion on a decisive issue, we try to have that discussion before a motion's made, so we're not re-amending motions over and over and over. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, just give you a point of clarification on that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
And I personally kind of like to have the discussion, and then at the end, we kind of hear what's going
Yeah.
on, have a consensus, and then we make a motion whether to recommend it or to not recommend.
Yeah. And again, because when you make a motion and it's seconded and then there's a discussion, if it ends up changing as a result of the discussion, or we need to add something or take something away from the motion, then we have to do an amendment, that takes a second, and a vote on that, and then back to the original. So just that clarification, that's why we do this, try to have the discussion at the front end.
And Aaron, you're all okay with that?
I'll just take notes. You all do what you do.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay.
That being said, with the discussion open, and again, I very much appreciate everybody's words. I too am a dog owner. Sounds like a great place that potentially beat a board. You know what you're doing. Zero issues with that. For anybody who's seen me up here previously on a lot of this stuff, one of the biggest things I do talk about though is precedent. We have to be extremely careful when it comes to precedent about what we approve, what we don't approve, when it does or doesn't fit. Now, again, not saying that I wouldn't be in support of it if it was, again, if it was a fit, but I also can't support items when, like, and I'm looking at that part of the dog division under the kennel license piece of it, and although you're in the greater part of the 2.5 acres stipulation, it's the latter half that goes to the and shall not approve variances or other zoning devices to allow the commercial kennel licenses in zones other than the commercial and industrial districts. So that being said, I would have an extremely hard time issuing an IUP with or without stipulations because it circumvents what's already written. Not saying that ordinances can't be changed, but this wouldn't be that venue for that, so I can't support it at this time. I agree with Tammy that, again, maybe it is a matter of wording, and if that's what needs to happen, I would recommend anyone, again, champion to city council that there maybe needs to be a change in that. If that was the case and that was their wishes, then an ordinance change would come back to us to discuss the ordinance change and go through that event. But like I said, at this time, the way I see it reading, I can't approve based on how the language is, because again, it creates too much precedent to say, yep, we're gonna allow it in this case because we have somebody who has exactly this much background in it, has exactly this much space, is responsible. I don't doubt that you wouldn't be by any means. However, we do have to be extremely careful, whether it's dogs, accessory structures, any other issues that come before us. We have to be mindful of the city as a whole, if that makes sense. So,
No, not
at this time. But I'm just trying to give a little bit of guidance where my thought process goes, because I don't want people to be under the impression I'm just a naysayer to things. But I've been preaching it for years. We need to be extremely careful about what we continue to approve, because then someone comes back and goes, oh, you let this guy have one. Okay, now I want to have one. And although you may have the best business practices, not everybody always does. And that's where you have to be really careful. Then you gets very dicey real fast about who's allowed what, who's not. And the city's not trying to be the police monitor of all of these businesses inside residential areas, because we're already reliant on our residents to report incidences when they happen and, or file a complaint when there's an issue. So, and that's hard enough to police even just that in itself. So part of the many reasons why it's probably worded the way it is at the moment, and why they direct people to the commercial areas, so that way it can be in those specific things. I do agree though, dealing with, animals should be more in a nature setting than in a true commercial lot sense. However, East Bethel is also very fortunate that we do have, I think we have commercial lots available for things like this, that it may be better fit in, and we make use of that, of our land in that area, especially when we have enough residences that have talked about making sure we preserve our look and feel, even with the areas that we've deemed with some of the commercial or industrial areas. So that's my take on it for the discussion. Like I said, I would love to approve it, but I just, based on the language that's here, I just can't see it without creating a precedent that makes bigger issues down the road.
But there might be different opinions.
There
right?
absolutely may
Alrighty.
very well be. That's just
Okay.
mine.
And if any of you gentlemen want to say anything.
Yeah, I'll speak on the topic. I really like your idea a lot. I think that you're definitely focused and got a good plan. I'm not comfortable with the breaking the language, and that's.
You guys already have, there's a commercial kennel and a residential zone in Bethel already that you've approved. Maybe you guys aren't familiar with it, but
Yeah, Andy,
there already is one.
if you don't mind, we'll kind of discuss it, and actually, genuinely, you'll see that there's different opinions kind of done together, and then if we need you to come back up, we will, and we'll sure give you a chance to talk, okay? Thank you. Okay.
So I struggle with that a lot about the changing it, and it is a residential area, and I realize the neighbors you have probably fully support you, the neighbor right next door. I actually drove by when I read it was about it, because I just wanted to get my bearings on the site. And people move, people change, so I struggle with that, I hope you don't quit your dream here, because of this, but I think I'm gonna probably, unless there's some type of an amendment that changes the way, I'm gonna probably stand with Tanner on this.
I'll speak. I came reading the packet thinking this is a pretty clear-cut case of you can't do this because the language is very clear about that. Having seen your presentation of what you're doing, looking at the land, I mean, to me it seems like an ideal situation, an ideal and needed thing, as opposed to an industrial space having dogs. Just seems a little, I mean, it's, if done right, which it seems like this is, and you have a nice wooded property and the way you communicated what you would be doing and your neighbors' support, because they know, like, it's one thing when you have neighbors who are very opposed because they've been around and they know, like, oh, this guy's trouble, or that, or his situation is a trouble situation. It's another thing when you have neighbors highly supporting what you're doing. Not every one of your neighbors, but a lot of them. So, and having the dogs in a setting like this rather than an industrial setting also seems like a good thing. So again, as the other two gentlemen have expressed, the trouble is, again, the ordinance, not what you're presenting. And I'm kind of torn on that, because a lot of times we grant variances, but this isn't a variance, it's an IUP, but we grant variances because of unique situations. And if this were a variance request, and terrific, because this is a very well presented and constructed idea. But this is an IUP, which goes against our ordinance. So I don't really know what to do about that, other than if we are able to revisit the ordinance and change it, which and that takes some careful thought to do that, because we don't want to create a condition where the host city is open to a lot of situations that would involve staff enforcement on complaints. Because there's all of the staff interactions on these are complaint driven rather than just seeing a violation but nobody complaining. So I'm not really sure where to go with that, other than perhaps request, if this doesn't go through, your patience while we revisit this topic, because I'd like to see this work. I'm just not sure we can do that. But I'm not, so that's the hard part. I'm not against the idea at all. I like the idea. I'm just not sure how we can do that with the language of the ordinance. So I'd be really open to a good creative solution to that. Don't know what that is at this moment.
I agree with council members. It's a great idea. It is. Seems very viable, but the way that it's written, Article 2, Section 1054, it specifically states that it can't be done in a residential zone. And as far as you mentioned precedence, Tanner, yes, if we were to cross this line, we'd be opening the door for other such requests. And it's the way that it's written, I think that's where maybe a request like this should begin its focus on maybe changing the wording, as opposed to going against how it is currently written. I was reading this and I did think that the city staff confirming with the Minnesota Secretary of State business filings, the address was a bit of a trying to get the ball rolling, in spite of the way that the Article 2 is written. And again, if we wish to move forward with this, then we should focus on that wording instead of trying to deal with it the way it is and going against how it is written.
Well, and again, a part of our role too, for everyone to remember, we're also not the final say in all items either. We're an advisory commission. We work at the behest of city council. So when these issues come up, they come here first to have the discussion to make their decision easier, which is where we give our recommendation. There's still an opportunity to still go talk to them, even, correct me if I'm wrong with that, Aaron, if we motion to deny to go to city council, they would still have that opportunity, or is it dead there? Remind me.
You as the planning commission make a recommendation of approval or denial for the council to consider.
Yeah.
The council can listen to your recommendation, make their own recommendation, make an approval, make a denial.
Yep, and they don't always listen to our recommendations either. So like I said, we're not the final say in that. It's just we're the investigative, the discussionary portion of this to get the ball rolling for that, and then we make a recommendation based on obviously our opinions on what we read and what was given with us. Like I said, I lean very heavily on the precedence factor, just because we've, at least in my tenure up here, seen it more than once where, again, things have come up where approved some things in the past and there was specific circumstances for one thing, maybe not for another, again, whether it be any number of different items. But what I definitely don't want to also be is a committee of just, yep, it works, here you go, yep, it works, here you go, or no, it doesn't, no, it doesn't. We do try to think these things through, but we're still bound within the confines of the rules that were set forth. So, and that's where we try to make our ruling in the best judgment we can.
One thing that I wanted to point out, though, I think, is when it goes to city council, there'll be no public hearing, though, correct? I mean, so all of this input kind of stops here with our recommendation to approve. We just make that recommendation to approve or deny it.
But there is the public forum before the city council.
That's very true, yeah. So if, whatever we decide today, you could go to the city council and sign up for the public forum and speak there too. I think your time is limited to 3 minutes there, more or less. So.
Aaron, do you have any
Chair
context?
Johnson, there were a couple questions that came up during the public comment portion or the public hearing portion here. I'd like to address those if we can.
Please.
Just before you make your final consideration. So I did pull up the ordinance. And again, as city staff, I I do understand that there probably is a need in our community. I'm not the author of the ordinance, I'm just the keeper of the ordinance. And so if the ordinance says that it can't happen, it's my responsibility to promote that and or bring it forward for other people who can make the recommendation or denial or make the change. The rural residential zoning district in East Bethel does permit private kennels. So not commercial kennels, but private kennels. And then the number of animals is based on your acreage. So in this case, Mr. Bennick's property is more than 3 acres, but less than 5 acres. So in sense of a private kennel, he would be allowed 4 dogs.
Which would be 1 in addition to his current 3.
Correct. So even if we were to entertain the idea of an interim use permit for a commercial kennel, 1 dog from someone who he's watching now puts him at his maximum limit based on the zoning code. So there are inherent issues that come with all of these situations that need to be investigated and or thought out before a decision is made. Alternatively, the question came up about what sort of home-based businesses are allowed in the residential zoning districts. Each zoning district has a defined number of potential uses that would be allowed in those zones, but each of these are also case by case, where this is not an exhaustive list, obviously, and as industries change, things happen, but there is a pretty decent prescribed path for getting a home-based business in your residential zone based on what zone you're in. In terms of other kennels that may be in residential zones, those would have had to go through this same process. So, and if there are kennels that did not go through this process, they are operating in violation of the ordinance and no one has made a complaint and we haven't investigated. Staff don't have the time or resources to investigate complaints based on that, and that's how our procedure is set up. So there is very likely alternative kennels in East Bethel that we just won't address until there's actual complaint.
Yeah. And I guess I'd like to just address the one question to the individual who talked about businesses in general continuing to pop up in residential neighborhoods and areas, and without going into the deep dive on it, all I would say there is, if it's an not authorized, as Aaron talked about, with just kennel or sign business or anything else, if they're operating out of compliance with ordinance in the city, please bring it to the city's attention. If they have been granted IUPs, CUPs, additional licenses, and they're possibly in violation of that, also please let us know. One of the very first things with regard to any business is additional traffic. That'd be your first area of a complaint. If there was one, if business is generating extra traffic in a neighborhood that would be not otherwise of a neighborhood, like flatbeds and other bigger delivery trucks, that's probably something that we should be made aware of so we can address it, so you're not having to live with issues like that in general. So if you see it, say it, let us know. That way they can address it. We can if they don't otherwise.
There are also alternative avenues to determine if a property has been issued an IUP, a conditional use permit, or a special license. You can find those things through the Anoka County tax records if there's anything on the property. So if you don't want to alert City Hall, but you want to question whether somebody has a license or not, that information is public. You can find it.
Yeah.
Okay. This has been a really unusual discussion from what we usually have. Things come through here and they're almost always just kind of a yes. But is it appropriate for me to open up the public hearing again, just to have Andy come up?
Absolutely. You're the chair. You do what you want.
Okay, so Andy, I'm just going to open the public hearing for you to have a few words, okay?
Do I have to state my name and address again?
Please.
My name's Andy Bennick, address 625 221st Avenue Northeast. Are you guys aware of the commercial zone in East Bethel and where it lands?
You mean the the distance
the
of it?
commercial and the industrial zone?
And yes.
Familiar with some of it, I don't have the map memorized by any
It's,
means.
well, like Aaron told me once, it's about a half a mile on the west side of 65 and on the east side of 65. That is, I mean, I can see it from my driveway. And you guys already do have a commercial kennel in a residential zone approved through the city, miles out of the commercial zone. So we need to do some research on how that got through the wordage of your ordinance, because they are a commercial kennel licensed through you guys in a residential zone, miles out of the commercial zone. And I am less than a fourth of a mile out of the commercial zone. I can see I mean, you can see
I'm trying to get it to display, it's not wanting to
It's-
function
I
properly
can
today.
stand at the end of my driveway and it's very close to my house.
Aaron, are you aware of the license he's describing?
Yes.
We do have a
Yes.
individual in our city that has a,
Commercial kennel in a residential zone,
Sure.
miles out of the commercial.
Yep, and that was granted by a city council at another time in another place, and the conditions, I don't know, I was not here.
That's why we will just have to do some research.
Well, and
to
that's
figure
where I
it
go
out.
back to the precedent thing again. If there was
It's-
another one and another incident,
It's already happened, so it can happen again.
potentially, again, I'd have to see. And again,
What's the precedent you're speaking of?
that's exactly the reason I bring up precedent in the
Yeah.
first place. So if there already is, again, short of going in to find more information to see what that specific instance was, again, not saying be the same, not saying that it isn't. But again, alls I can go with is what I have before me here. This is what I have, this is what I'm working within, until we would do further research with whatever that license is.
Yeah.
That'd be all I could say to that, and I would hope city council does their due diligence on that when it goes before them, based on whatever the recommendation is tonight.
Yeah. Well, I think.
And Andy, we're not trying to be confrontational at all, we're just kind of discussing all these things, so.
Yeah, for sure. I did a lot of my research and, I mean, there's already an existing one, so we need to do some more research on how they got approved with the wordage of this.
Well, they would have gone through this hearing and then gone through the city council hearing, just like the process you're going through right now.
Right.
Okay.
Do you have any idea what year that would have been?
Tammy, what year did you get your kennel license? 2009.
Thank you.
But since you were talking, and she brought up meters, meters is doing the exact
Okay,
same thing.
if you're gonna talk, we're gonna have to have you at the microphone, but, I think we've got the point for sure.
Did you
So.
know, there's been complaints on that, and he just said that they
Okay.
aren't looked at.
Okay, Tammy. Okay, so Andy,
Okay,
is there anything
we're gonna
else?
ask the applause,
Yeah.
keep to a minimum so we can keep composure of the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Andy, is there anything else that you wanna say?
No, that's
in the end?
everything. I'm
Okay.
very close to the commercial zone.
So this is the best map at the moment I can find that has the commercial zone.
Yeah.
So this colored, non-yellow zone, purples, reds, dark reds, grays are the commercial zone. Yellows and oranges and browns are a residential zone.
Can you,
So there's land there.
can
So-
you put the arrow where his?
I'm trying to. Right here, I believe, is Andy's property.
Yep.
And this red one would be the church, what the pastor spoke on. This would be in R1, this would be in R2, and then this would be light industrial into the commercial. So he's over a 40-acre section away from the first industrial zone, if not more.
But again, I guess that leads back to my point, not about what your approximation is to that area, as opposed to the fact that there is area available to do that within the confines of what the code currently reads. If you were to start said business on said property within those areas.
Yeah, that's not what I'm trying to do.
I understand
And
not
what
what you're
I'm-
trying to do at the moment, I'm just
Yeah.
offering that as an alternative
What I'm
solution.
trying to do has already been done, so I'm looking to go that route. I'm not looking to move.
All right.
I would like to stay in the community, and I spent my whole life here. I'm 32 years old. I've been here my entire life. I would like to bring the business to our community. I could go anywhere in the world with my animal skills, and I'm looking to stay here in East Bethel.
Okay. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah.
Very, very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm
So-
wondering if
Go
we
ahead.
should table this and get information on the existing one as far as how, if that is a precedent or a language used that would justify doing this one.
Yep. I was going to suggest exactly the same
We should
thing,
probably close the
but
public
I
hearing
was going to just close the public hearing,
Oh.
and then we just need to have a little bit more discussion.
Okay.
And I haven't given my opinion on this all yet either. And I will say that when I came in, I was kind of like Glenn, as I'm thinking, just on paper, it didn't sound real great. I have been swayed the other way, okay? And I was in a very, very similar position to you, that my genesis with the planning commission was when we came for an IUP for our farm. We have Minnesota Fresh Farm on the highway, and thanks, well, whatever. It took months for us to get through this system, and it was really discouraging. So I really can understand how you're feeling right now. But looking back, I figured they had to kind of go through the process, and so it is a process, and sometimes it's painful. You have my support. I think it's a good thing. I do want to make sure that, you know, if there's issues, that they have to be addressed. So really, that's about all I want to say is I do support it, just because I think that Andy really does know how to handle animals much better than I do.
Well, and I'd venture to say I don't think anyone up here tonight has said that they were not in favor of him wanting to have it, or that he wouldn't be qualified for it. And again, this is also part of why when I started my initial conversation, I also stated it with, again, this may be something we want to look at. And again, I would recommend to the applicant to push for the ordinance change if this was not to go the way that you want it to, which is why I started it that way, that sometimes it's a matter of what we can or can't do based on what we have directly in front of us. And to Sharon's point again, sometimes you have to go through the pain of following the process or amending the process. So
Yeah.
that's all I wanted to add with that.
You know, I don't know if there's a way to write the IUP so it can be more acceptable, but I am hearing you guys, especially that, I mean, this just really flies in the face of the ordinance.
Which is why I think we need to look at that other one and see how did that go through, and see if we can replicate that in this case.
Don't forget that ordinances change over time, and I don't know the history, but it may have been acceptable in 2009, but may have changed in 2010 and become unacceptable as a result of not necessarily the other kennel, but maybe complaints that the city received or information that became relevant. I can't speak for that. I was not here. I did not research that. The ordinance is the ordinance.
So how difficult is it to see the history of the ordinance?
So if you look at the bottom right here, all of these dates were changes to the ordinance from its original form. So there was a change in '02, another change in '02, a change in '05, a change in 2007, and a change in 2019. Now I would need to go back to each one of those council meetings to determine what part of the ordinance was revised at that date and time in order to determine if that was the case. If we allowed one, but then the ordinance changed, that doesn't allow it anymore. We would have to find that out.
That would only be the 2019 one. If the other one is granted 2009, then all those were before that.
Sure. I was just using that as an example of how we would have to backtrack to find out what the changes were in each step along the way.
And still possibly go back to the original meeting when it was approved, to find out what the conditions were as to why it was, if it was or wasn't, or if it was allowable based on the ordinance at that time. And now is operating legal non-conforming,
That's correct.
which we see a lot of in the city with even just septic systems.
Welcome to growth.
So Glenn, you're requesting or suggesting that we table this?
Yes, that's my recommendation, that we see if there is precedent we can use based on the other one, and what the background is, so that we could try to sort this out. To me, having him have to move to a commercial space, or his commercial zone, it's like defeats the point of what he's doing, which is why this is different than a commercial kennel in terms of its value to the community.
Yeah, but again, in the world of precedents, people can't always get just what they want either, though, right? I mean, there's reasons that we have the ordinances. There's reasons that we have it in certain areas. We want to try to be beholden to that with the ordinances that we have.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
It
and just
totally
because we want to.
defeats what he wants to do, though, I mean, to be with the animals.
I get it. I do. I'm not lost in that. And again, if it were written differently, I'd have zero issue with that. I really would. I love to have another, someone to board my dogs with that's closer to home than where we currently do. But again, it can't just be what I want either.
Sure.
We're all bound by what we've got in front of us.
Okay. Do we need a motion to table it?
We do.
Why don't you, yeah, you should make a motion, but then I also need to know what information you want in order to make a decision.
Sure.
The other option, I suppose, would be that you make a recommendation to the city council, if possible, with the additional information provided to them. I don't know if you can do that tonight or not. That's completely up to you, whatever direction you want to go. I'm more than happy to do more research into what your request is.
So
what would facilitate a decision that you could make?
Well,
And before we do that, I was just gonna ask if you guys have anything that you wanna say before we start making any motions.
No, I like the idea of tabling it and getting more information. I think would be huge.
I would like to review the previous revision also.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, is it possible, instead of that, it seems like it would be difficult, but would it be possible to have that information to council so that we forwarded whatever we forward as a motion, but rather than tabling it, you are able to do the research prior to that meeting, or is that just not enough time?
Well, 2 weeks is plenty of time, Glenn. I can get a lot of done in 20 minutes, but I don't know if you guys have what you're requesting to make a decision tonight on approval or denial. If something were to come up in that research, you might change your opinion.
Correct.
So I think if you're gonna make a decision, but you wanna see more information, then I would hold off, but that, you guys do what you wanna do.
Yeah. I think the only thing I would see if it was, I would rather see the ball continue to keep moving, so it's not a delay for the applicant, and it doesn't add more to our future agendas. However, is there a world and a way, at least for me at this point, it would be a motion to deny with continued precedented information to be added for city council's review for possible approval. Is there a way to word that? I'm trying to come up with it.
If you give me like 2 minutes, I might be able to find the minutes from March 11th of 19, if that would be helpful.
Okay, then in that case.
If you want to give me a minute here,
Well,
I'll see what I can find.
So are you coming in with a motion now?
Well, I was gonna table it to the end of the agenda to give him the time and move on to the next thing and circle back, if we wanted to do that. Otherwise, it would have been a motion to deny. I'm trying to think of how best to word it. That's just, again, based on the current verbiage, to deny unless extenuating circumstances come from a previous approval. I'm trying to think of the best way to word it now.
Is that our only options, approve, deny, or table? There's not like.
I'd say those three,
Yep.
right?
Yep, we owe it to the applicant to make a decision one way or the other.
Well,
or say that we need more information.
or to table it and.
Well,
and
that's,
say
that's
we-
what he said.
yeah.
He threw out all
Yeah.
three. So, but
I concur, Tanner. I think we should make a motion based on the current ordinance, but bring it to city council's attention that there might have been existing documents when it was approved that might want to be considered before they make their final decision.
If so, I'd like to have the motion also state that we would like to see this happen. We just don't know how at this point, in terms of the language. So we're not, like, if we deny, it's not because we don't think it's a good idea, it's just the opposite, but that we don't know how to move forward given the ordinance.
It appears the change in 2019 was for service animals. Therapy dogs, service animals were added to the ordinance.
okay, so then
So
it would go back to the 2009 when Tammy's was approved.
Kind of, on what basis was it approved?
On what basis was it approved? So in the interest of our time, again, not having that, if there was a, let's see here, I want to make sure I word it right. I would put forth a motion to deny with the notice, trying to think. Brian, you worded it well, I apologize. How did you say it?
A motion that we deny per the current ordinance as it is written, but ask that city council consider the approval in 2009 when making their final decision.
Seconded. It's my way of saying you motioned it.
Yeah, he did, okay. And Aaron got the motion and,
Trying here.
okay.
Could I ask for further discussion?
You surely can.
It might be good, but we should decide this, whether the applicant would prefer that we table it and draw it out another month before coming to our decision, or to send it as this motion has been made, knowing that we are trying to find if there is language that would allow this, like in terms of the time frame, basically.
So you're asking me to open the public hearing?
If the applicant would prefer that it move forward even with a denial, knowing that we are trying to see if there's a way to do this, or to wait another month for it to come back here and then go to council after that.
Okay, so you want me to open the public hearing again?
If you're,
Okay.
think that's a good
Yeah,
question to ask.
I don't know if you need to, you can just ask him directly. He's the applicant, he can.
Okay. So Andy, would you prefer that we table this and kind of take our time about getting the conditions of that
Early
IUP
approval.
that we had? Or just deny it and then say to the city council, we deny it, we might even say we're for you, but somebody needs to get more information, so we're asking you, how do you like to go forward? This is really unusual.
There's gonna be more information found either way. And based on the research from 2019 and the ordinance change, the ordinance in my situation is still the same as the 2009 ordinance. So there is a way to approve it. We just need to do it the same way that we did it in 2009.
Okay. So you want us to go forward with the denial? Table it?
I like Glenn a lot. That
So
was his recommendation.
the reason I'm asking that is because if we table it, it won't appear until another month, and then it'll go from that point to the
Following
like 2 weeks or whatever the next council meeting would be.
So it's about 6 weeks
You'd
from
be
now.
you'd be into the middle of April before city council would see it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been going on this since summer of 2023,
So you're fine with,
time is,
You're fine with continuing not to operate.
we've got all the time in the world. I've got
Okay. I love hearing that. So right now we have a motion on the table
So then,
and seconded.
so we would have to
And-
deny it to create a motion to table it.
Oh, I'm so confused.
No, I got you. I got you.
No,
I got you. It's
thank
okay.
you. I
The
appreciate it.
person who made the motion and the second could also withdraw, and you could just make a new
I
motion.
was just gonna ask if you want
If you
to,
withdraw, then we
do you want to withdraw your motion?
Would like to withdraw my motion.
Thank you.
I'll withdraw the second.
Okay, do we have another motion?
I'd like to make a motion to table this item pending further research on how the 2009 kennel license was granted, so we can, well, just leave it at that.
Yeah, okay. Any seconds?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion?
No.
Okay, let's take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and opposed? Okay, so the ayes won on that one.
There
And,
likely won't be a public hearing at the next
Right.
section. We've completed our obligation at a public hearing, but you are more than welcome to open that back up if you wish at that time, but it wouldn't be necessary.
and we will remember this discussion, and this night, it's been unprecedented, I will say. Okay, so thank you really for your patience while we kind of work through this, okay? Great. We'll go on to the next agenda item, which is a variance request. Aaron?
Yeah, give me 1 second, Madam Chair, to get things organized here, get myself back where we should be. All right, variance request for a detached accessory structure to be placed nearer the front lot line than the primary structure at 19455 4th Street Northeast. This property is located in the rural residential zoning district and is located within the Norsland Manor subdivision. The property owner is requesting a variance for the placement of a detached accessory structure closer to the street than the primary structure on the south side of the lot. Zoning Appendix A General Regulations, Section 14, 2.f states that no accessory building or detached private garage shall be located nearer the front lot line than the principal building except for when the lot is 3 acres or greater and the existing principal structure is located a minimum of 200 feet from the front lot line. Then the accessory building or private detached garage may be located closer to the front lot line than the principal dwelling, but not closer than 50% of the principal dwelling setback. This property is 1.09 acres, with the primary structure setback approximately 90 feet from the front lot line. Or 95 feet, excuse me. This request does not meet the criteria set forth to allow the structure to be placed closer to the road or street, so a variance would be required for the placement of the detached accessory structure. The consideration of a variance requires the Planning Commission consider the 3-factor test for practical difficulty. The first factor, a test of reasonableness, means that the landowner would likely use the property in a practical way but cannot do so under the rules of the ordinance. It does not mean that the land cannot be put to any reasonable use whatsoever without the variance. So for example, if the variance application is for a building too close to the lot line or does not meet the required setback, the focus of the first factor is whether the request to place the building there is reasonable. In this case, accessory structures are a permitted accessory use in the rural residential zoning district. The second factor is that the landowner's problem is due to circumstances unique to the property, not caused by the landowner. The uniqueness generally relates to the physical characteristics of a particular piece of property, that is, to the land and not the personal characteristics or preferences of the landowner. When considering the variance for a building to encroach or intrude into a setback, the focus of the factor is whether there is any physically unique about the particular piece of property, such as sloping topography or other natural features like wetlands. In this case, the property is relatively flat with a 2-foot elevation change across the entire 1-acre lot. The primary residence was constructed in 1986 and built directly in the center of the lot. The well and septic are located on the north side of the residence. There are 25-foot side yard setbacks in our rural residential family zoning district. The house is located approximately 88 feet from the side yard property line. There are 25-foot rear yard setbacks in the rural residential single-family zoning district. There's 125 feet between the front foundation and the rear property line in this property. Zoning code allows for a 1,240 square foot detached accessory building, or an approximately 30 by 40 maximum for a property of this size. The adjacent property has a significant stand of evergreen trees which straddle the identified property line. There is a 10-foot concrete slab on the side of the house attached to the garage, and there is a row of arborvitae bushes or trees, 5 in number, adjacent to the slab. The third factor in the variance is that it would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. I'm trying to get you guys a close-up here of the property. This factor is used to consider whether the resulting structure would be out of scale, out of place, or otherwise inconsistent with the surrounding areas. For example, when thinking about a variance for an encroachment into a setback, the focus is how particularly the building will look closer to the lot line and if that fits within the character of the neighborhood. In this case, in Norsland Manor, there are 74 parcels in Norsland Manor. Of the 74, 37 have detached accessory structures. 3 of those 37 are nearer than the front lot line than the primary structure. However, they were constructed prior to 2008. Section 14 of the Detached Accessory Structure Ordinance was amended in March 9th of 2020. Standing tree growth between the proposed detached accessory structure and the front property line may be a screen from the public roadway. City staff is requesting the Planning Commission hold a public hearing and recommend approval or denial of the variance request to the City Council for the placement of the detached accessory structure nearer the front lot line than the primary structure, with the conditions written in the resolutions attached in your packet.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're going to open up the public hearing for this issue. And does anyone want to come up? Gino, do you want to come up?
My name is Gino Brees. I live at 19455 4th Street. The property in question here. My wife and I have lived in the house since 2000. We're getting ready to retire, and we're finishing the stuff we need to do to retire in 3.5 years. The last thing was to build a garage, and we've kind of set up our property. I wish I had a pointer to where. Oh, there you go.
I'm trying to bring up a better one here. I know that 2020 is a much better view.
Where the city wants the garage to be would be behind here. Would be here. The trees that we planted beside the house there would be in the shadow of the sun from the south. We planted these arborvitaes here because the house having a southern exposure kills everything that's there. The sun just relentless. So our idea was to build a garage here. We've redone our driveway to accommodate that in May, only to find out when we applied for a building permit that we weren't allowed to have a property in front of the house. The only reason that we wanted one, we kind of designed everything like this, is because our neighbors to the south have one. And, we watched them build theirs. neighbors to the southeast, we watched them build theirs. Neighbors to the northwest, we watched them build theirs. And so now, if we build where we can get a permit, we'll lose the landscaping. There's a window right here that will look out and see the side of the garage. I mean, the only way to get to there, we've already cut down, these are approximately 100-year-old trees here. They're about this big in diameter.
Planning Commission, I don't know if he's gonna, any of what he said is gonna be caught by the,
Sure.
because he's so far from the microphone.
Yeah, if you could try to stand closer to the microphone,
okay.
please. So,
We're trying to.
Oh, yeah, microphone.
Okay, we're trying to minimize, you know, if we build this where we can be permitted, you know, without a variance, there's really no way to get to the garage because we'd have to cut down, you know, 2 stands of trees to get to it. Our neighbors to the south here, if we build down to here, coming out, it gives us 25 feet between the garage and the property line in order to have an area where those arborvitaes are. To the south of that, there's a gas line that we can't move the garage closer to the house. So, and if our initial plan was to park a motorhome there. We've got 5 kids, 3 of them live out of state, southern, 2 in California, 1 in Mississippi. Was to spend the winters in an RV, but if we have to put it where it's permitted, we won't have anywhere to park it because we can't get by our neighbors' trees without asking them to trim them so we can get in there. So, yeah.
so the RV is going to go in the garage?
No, the RV would go beside the garage. If these trees right here, the garage would start here and 25 feet from this lot line. It doesn't give much room back in there, but if the garage was placed the other way, it would give us 35 feet in order to get to the access to the backyard and have an RV park there. So what we want is the city is to let us put it in front of the house, like the people, our neighbors. I didn't know that ordinance would change, or I would have tried to find a way to do this somewhere else, but now we're kind of committed on where this garage is gonna be. So what I'm asking you guys is to, you know, let me build it where I know it's practical problems, practical difficulties per the variance ordinance is to the property, but it's the trees to the south aren't my property and they're a difficulty. I mean, I like my neighbors. I don't want to go, hey, we're gonna start chopping your trees up so we can get to our stuff. So what we want to do is just put it where the black truck is, out that way. And I mean, it matches, you know, several houses in the neighborhood. So it's not an eyesore. It's just, I don't know why the ordinance was changed, but we're just hoping that we can put it where we want it and not where we have to.
Okay.
Okay?
Great, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, yeah. The only question I was gonna ask you is like kind of what harm was there gonna be or what hardship, and you answered it all.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
We like the trees to the west there because they do have some shade. Granted, they're 100 years old, but we lost some on the other side due to lightning strikes and it took a lot to clean them up. So I mean, we want those to stand as long as we can because that's a lot of wood.
So,
Okay,
can I
thank
ask
you.
2 questions?
Sure.
How big is it gonna be? What's your intent?
40 by 30.
Okay, so just exactly like that square.
Right.
And it's gonna run that way, only just push it up and over?
It'll run this way,
Yeah, 40. Which way is the 40 way?
40 this way,
Oh, okay, so
Quarter,
40.
yeah.
and 30 this way.
Oh, and so where will the entrance be off your existing driveway?
Try to keep by the microphone though, sorry.
Yeah, it would be, we would be able to drive in our driveway.
Existing
and
driveway.
Right in the existing driveway, otherwise, we'd end up, we can't have two driveways, so.
Right.
And even if we could, we wouldn't wanna cut down all the trees to build a second driveway, so if we can use that one.
But like your neighbor, you could continue the driveway to the
use-
structure.
Use the same driveway to get to the structure without having to build a whole nother.
No, I'm saying you could attach, if leaving the blue square where it is, you could attach the driveway.
Yeah,
That way.
like this,
Yeah.
I don't,
I'm not saying it's pretty, I just saying it's doable without having to lose the trees.
well, it's doable without losing the trees. The only problem is then I know, you know, per your thing there, cost isn't a factor, but for us, cost is a factor. So having to, you know, build a, I don't know, 60-foot driveway, you know, enough to where you can pull in and then back out and then turn around would be prohibitive for us.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions? Okay.
Any
Well,
questions I can
yeah,
answer you
no.
guys?
No, I think so.
Okay.
Thank you, Gino,
Thanks,
very
Gino.
much. Okay, so is there anyone else who'd like to address this issue? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing and open the discussion. We don't need do we need a motion for opening discussion? Whatever.
Yeah, I was always decisive on that one. I know Randy used to call.
For 20
Point
years,
of
we
order.
never had any.
We never
motions.
had-
We
Okay,
didn't
good.
prior to that. Randy really was more insistent that it was the Robert's Rules of
And
Order,
I loved
but
his knowledge of Robert's rules.
absolutely. The only comment I would make to that always was, you know, we operated on an abridged and not a hard line on that. So, yeah,
Okay, so
I'm okay saying
I'd like to
open to
do that.
discussion
Yeah, when
unless
we-
anybody else has an
When we
issue with
close
that.
public hearings, then we'll open the discussion for this year.
I have zero issue with that.
Great.
You're the
I
chair.
can see you want to say something.
Oh, no, but
Okay,
on
great.
that topic, I wanted to say that you're the chair and we don't have to follow that time-consuming process.
Good.
But I do have something to say about this, yes. So, for one thing, the house is set back pretty far. So to me, it's understandable if you have a shorter setback to not extend the accessory structure in front of it. So that's one thing in the favor of what he proposes. Another thing is that stand of trees acts as a very good screen in terms of the effect on the neighborhood. For which, I mean, that's an older photo, so you don't see the thick foliage as well. But
You typically don't in winter.
right, but I mean, like the growth, not just the growth. I mean the foliage. But
I was being comical.
Okay. So it's not like, I think the ordinance is just so you don't have a neighborhood full of garages that are the first thing you see, and rather than the houses, because that doesn't look very good. I don't think that's an issue on this particular case because of all those trees. Second or third, depending on how you're counting, it's like, to me, when I see something like this and the way you explain it, I'm just thinking, let the guy do what he wants to do on his property, because he's not harming anybody. It's reasonable to me, and it's like our ordinances are to protect the community, but not to be a cudgel to keep people from being able to do what's reasonable and enjoy the property. Is, you know, he's there every day thinking about what's going to work for him. We're just looking at this, and it just, I can really empathize with what he wants to do here, which again seems reasonable. And anyway, that's
your
those are my
thoughts.
points. Yes.
Okay, good. Any other thoughts?
Is it a stick building then? It's not a pole building?
No, it's stick building.
stick, same siding as the house, et
Okay,
cetera.
and Gina, we won't be having, only,
Yeah.
only because I don't want you talking, but because
Yeah.
you're not by the microphone. So,
Stick, yeah.
but, and Aaron can answer these questions real quick too, right?
I sure can.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the building permit myself, but,
I haven't, I was denied one.
Oh, okay. Alrighty, so are you satisfied with the answer
Yeah,
you
if
got?
it's, yeah, it matches the house is, I
Okay.
guess, my concern, same roof and siding.
well, that would be an architectural standard for,
Yeah.
regardless of whether it was a pole barn or a stick build, it would have to somewhat resemble the existing structure, so. The architectural colors, patterns, roof texture, like, that should all be as close as possible.
Yeah.
Based on the building, or our zoning code for buildings.
Yeah, I think that Gino has been, like you said, planning this out for a while. And, you know, he's been there for 24 years now, 23 years. So, I believe that he's going to, you know, it's a reasonable request. You know, the lot will not look scattered or disarray. It'll look very nice, I guess. He's not making it a eyesore in the neighborhood. And, you know, there's other plots in that same manner that have similar structures. So I think it's a reasonable request.
Okay, thank you. Any dissension here?
Yes, actually.
Okay, go.
I'm the negative guy tonight, apparently. And I'm gonna keep using the word precedent here, and I don't argue with the first and the third factor of the variance test. However, I don't feel the second factor is met, especially from the standpoint that the zoning ordinance does address the situations when houses are set what's considered far enough back. In this case, showing minimum of the 200 feet, which this does not meet that standard. So at the time, whenever the ordinance was drafted, again, assuming it was done with well intent and thought through on this, so to try to circumvent that, I can't see that for the second factor. And again, this is where I go back to the precedence factor. We see a lot of variance requests. We're going to continue to see them as long as there's still a city, and we really have to be careful. I mean, and the state actually did a good job in even changing how variant. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice by the end of the day here. But how the variance requests are done with the three-factor test. They even simplified it a handful of years ago to make our lives a lot easier, because these used to be a lot more difficult, Glenn, if you remember correctly. Yep. Which we may find out from the earlier topic about what happened in 2009. But I just, not seeing where the second factor is met, I can't vote in favor of it.
Okay.
Well, one thing that is unique is having 100-year-old trees, which could be negatively affected by
a structure being in that spot?
No, well, actually, no, because you could do the driveway like you said.
And again, I don't want to say not to have the driveway, but it's evident from the photo that he's not opposed to driving in the grass either. It's, if you didn't want to do a driveway right away or add it in over time as well. So, like I said, I struggle with the second factor, and there's a reason there's all three factors, and it can't just be the 2/3 to cover it. Unfortunately, we need all three.
So the way I read this is that the appendix was specific to a lot that is 3 acres or greater when it threw out that number of 200 feet from the lot line.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see that this structure is very central to it. Was it a 1 point? What was the size of the lot?
I think 09, 1.09.
1.09. So that's why I think it's a reasonable variance request, because it's a third of what that regulation is addressing. Yet the main structure is in the center of the lot. So that's why I think it's.
I think the spirit of the ordinance though was because lots can be greater, houses can be set farther back. And it was worded in a way to prevent that from happening in these rural residential areas from popping up. And although that there is some in the neighborhood that were done prior, again, without seeing all the history and the hows and the whys, and if they were granted variances or not, or if it was allowable at that time, or they built it without a permit. You know, a lot of factors can play into those
So
things.
the three that are in the development that are built in front of the front line were built prior to the ordinance change. All the other of the 34 that are left, minus those three, are all behind the front line of the houses.
Yeah.
These lots are all very similar in size throughout the entire 70 plus parcels.
So again, if we change the ordinance to specifically address this to prevent that from being the case, we're circumventing the ordinance. If allowing it, in my opinion, because it doesn't meet all three factors of the variance test. And although unfortunate that it's not the 200 feet and he's not in a larger lot, but if that's, if that's where we change the ordinance and how it reads, I can't see approving it and or creating the precedent for the future for anyone else who wants to build a detached structure closer to the street in front of their house for a lot of different reasons.
It seems to me that we have recommended approval for many similar ones, right?
Again, in other situations where there were other cases and they fit all
And
three
they're all
factors.
unique.
Yeah, like I said, I can't see it in the second one. On this, I agree the first and the third are met. For me, I don't see it in the second.
The house directly to the south, it doesn't appear as if his structure is gonna stick out any further than that structure, right? I mean, it's gonna be, I guess if he goes the 40-foot way, maybe it will.
Yeah, I think it would.
But if it was the 30, it probably wouldn't.
But that speaks to the third factor, not the second factor.
Give me 1 second here. I need to get out of acres and go to feet. Otherwise, we're talking a big building. No, it still went to.
Can I ask the applicant a yes or no question?
Sure, go ahead.
If you were to orient your garage instead of the 30 and 40 as you have it, but rotate it 90 degrees, would it functionally work for you?
And just try to keep it real short because we're
Just
going
a-
to kind of
just a yes
repeat
or no
your
question.
answer.
I'm not sure what you mean.
If you have it planned so the long dimension is this way?
I don't know if that's what he has planned. That's just what I came up with for a 30 by 40.
Well, he said that.
Oh, okay.
He said 40 going horizontal.
Right.
So if you were to rotate it so that the 40 was going in this direction,
North,
parallel to your tree line,
Yeah, that's the only way I can get it permitted.
but I mean, would it function for you to do it that way?
I guess it would function, it's just I wouldn't be able to pave it.
Okay, so he said that it would function, but he wouldn't be able to pave it.
Why would you not be able to pave it?
Do you want to open the public hearing again?
I think we can still have him come up without opening the public forum. We've had applicants up to have
Okay.
back and forth discussion.
Gina, would you just come up to the microphone again? It's just so that they can record what you say in the minutes.
All right. If the garage was placed in this fashion
Right.
here,
Mm-hmm.
it would be cost prohibitive for me to pave it. We just had our driveway replaced and widened. You mean like that?
Right.
Well, then the garage would have to, the doors would have to still be on the 40.
Right.
And we'd still end up paving.
Right, so you couldn't enter, that's
Well,
not enough.
because then I only be able to have basically one narrow door, because the building ordinance says that you have to have 4 feet between doors. and the edge of the wall. So if you put a 16-foot door in the middle of it, you have to have 4 feet on each end, that's 24 feet. So that doesn't leave much room for.
I'm not aware of that because
So that's what you were
not
talking
how
about
my
with the
garage is.
permit.
It's a new ordinance, it's called a wind wall. You can put, you would have to put 3 layers of LVL, I don't know what that is, across a solid beam all the way across for where the garage door openings are for a wind wall. So the wind doesn't.
Structurally supporting the wall so it
Right.
won't cave in.
But that's not how my garage is. I have a foot or 2.5 feet.
So I would have a 40-foot deep garage with basically one door.
Right.
That no matter what you wanted, would always be at the back.
Would you be opposed to just attaching it to the front of the garage and out down the driveway? You have less driveway and more garage?
If we did what? I don't know how I
would
would
that be
even
any
do that.
improvement?
Then if I.
You line up the north side with the north side of your current garage.
Right.
I'm just saying, once you attach it, you alleviate yourself from that.
Right, we were trying to figure out what the definition of an attached garage,
Structurally
an
attached.
but by one board.
2x4.
To building code.
If I took a 25-foot 2x4 and nailed it
That's
from
not
one garage, that's what we were trying to figure out.
You'll have to match the footing of the existing building that you
Okay,
attach
see,
to.
we were trying to find that definition and we couldn't find it anywhere. I could build that garage, but if it was attached to the house, I could not build that garage. I'm not capable of that, so that's above my pay grade. And if it was back that far, then they're still paving, like that. I would put the garage there and just try to find a way to plow the yard because too much, I don't have the money for that much asphalt.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gino, very much. Do we want to talk about this, or does somebody want to make a motion? Anybody?
I'll make a motion to deny based on not meeting the 3-factor variance test.
Is there a second? Okay, I don't hear a second. Is there anyone who want to make a motion to recommend approving this variance?
I'll make a motion to approve the variance request with any staff recommendations that may be applicable, but I don't see them, so. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the variance request. as
Recommend approving.
requested.
Yes. Okay. All right, so we have a motion to recommend approving the variance request. Any seconds?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, great. And we'll vote, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and the ayes carry that, or the,
Future reference, there's always still discussion between the second and the vote, but
but.
we had kind of already had a lot
Okay,
of it,
got it,
so.
okay. Thank you for that.
Nope, I
appreciate
would have,
it.
nope, in the future, I would have, again, re-advocated for someone to please tell me where the second factor came in, would have been my question.
Okay. Thank you. And I do want to thank you for your opposing opinion. Sometimes I think we do get in this discussion that everybody agrees, and we need to have.
It's not for trying to be a naysayer, and trust me,
I know,
I am
understand
empathetic
completely.
on a lot of these situations, and I know I don't always come across that way, but in reality, I'm gonna reference Eldon once upon a time too.
I was just going to talk about Eldon too.
I very much appreciate it in a
Yeah.
similar fashion,
Mhm.
and I do embody a piece of that, because it did stick with me very much, especially due to the fact that's one of the reasons Eldon even left in the first place is from what he had told me at the time, is he had struggled with, actually, well, that was his exiting statement, if I remember correctly, it was, he struggled with how often we were approving variance requests when not all factors were met, and from my interpretation, felt that more emotion was put into it than with what the letter of the law is, and create a precedent. So that sat with me very, very hard, especially when he left, because Eldon was a great resource for someone who had been on this body for a long time. So I do try to remember that when we have stuff that comes up, of looking at all sides, because again, if the border place was, again, if it fit and was here, wonderful. I have no doubt that he wouldn't run a great business there. However, I do see that there are other ways to do things, and although it's not always cost effective, I'd love to do a lot of things too, but I don't have the money to do it either. So, as much as I hate to say it, you know what, if this is your passion, and there is land not far from where you're at, and it fits that, it might fit that. Unfortunately, I know that, the cost for the driveway and or where a garage may get placed isn't always reasonable. I get it too. My brother just helped him frame a detached accessory structure. He's got a bit of a unique property that got added together, and he had to place it behind his house, and it, based on a cornered curved boulevard, not exactly an easy thing to do, but was done. And I think we also do have to remember those who have followed the ordinances and either not built things, reduced in size, moved things, done them the way they had. And for things to go through, sometimes it can be hard for those who didn't get something to see something that had gotten through. So there's a lot of factors that go into it when I do think this through. So I thank you for recognizing that, is what I'm saying here. But for those who are new, please remember that as well. Like I said, as much as we all want to put our emotion into it too, we have to let things go through the process, and we have to see if it fits or doesn't fit. And we've seen that with, and I'll reference the old CST issue. If you guys are familiar with that, we had a business who wanted to operate in an industrial area. It was a little bit on the gray side from the get-go, but they applied. We let them apply because they have every right to apply. But once you apply, there's a process that has to happen and needs to be followed. And we can't stop that just because we either don't like it, but we have to follow the process, and we have to trust the process that it'll do what it's supposed to happen. Just again, why my opening statement to the bordering folks tonight was, we may want to look at the ordinance for ordinance change, but the way I see it right now, it doesn't fit. So I was still trying to give them an avenue, and although it doesn't always fit at this moment, it might in the future, or again, advocate for a change in the ordinance. We've had other ordinance changes come up in the last year with the new council as well for things that they felt were necessary changes. So I don't think it's a hard argument to ask for what you're asking for, just do it the right way. That's all I'm trying to say with it.
Okay.
So in the language.
Thank you for the
Yes.
opportunity to speak on that.
Okay.
In the language, it says consideration of a variance requires the planning commission to consider the three-factor test for practical difficulties. The word consider doesn't say obey it says consider, which we've done. And so I'm seeing that as some leeway as to our decision-making on a case-by-case basis, rather than, you can't, like, the language of the ordinance on the previous one is pretty clear, but this is, for variance, we're considering practical difficulties, which I think we did. And even if it didn't meet that second one, unless you got really creative about the language, I still think we've considered it, and we've looked at a specific situation before us, and it seemed like a good fit that was fitting in with the neighborhood, the situation of the land and the trees, and fulfilled his needs. And it just, again, I come back to, these ordinances are to protect the city, to protect the people, and, people should also have the right to do what they want on their property if it doesn't negatively affect others, is my bottom line on that.
Yeah, it's kind of why you have variances. Anyways, but again, I very much appreciate what you were saying. So, and with you guys, this discussion has been kind of unusual, a lot more in-depth than we normally do.
Yep.
So I apologize to Council Member Smith that this is probably going to be how all of the meetings are going to go. I do really appreciate everybody's thoughts. even if you aren't so sure what you're gonna be saying, I do appreciate it. Okay, so, and the one thing that I just wanted to talk to y'all about is, you know, we've had kind of a rough year in the planning commission. The last year, I think that there were some emotional issues with Capstone, and I think that we just need to kind of keep emotion out of it, and Tanner really does a great job of that, of not being emotional about things, I think. So we're going into a new year, and I really value everybody's discussions, and I'm gonna kind of pull you into the discussion, everybody. Okay. So you're gonna be here for a while, council members. Would you, I think you're next up, aren't you?
Yes.
Good evening.
Good
Planning
evening.
Commissioners. Congratulations, Cory.
Thank you.
Ryan. And Sharon.
Oh, and Gino.
Thank you.
You knew how that went, right? That you. Yeah, it was approved.
Okay.
Well, you recommended approval.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, we recommended,
Goes to
And I
council.
go to the city.
Goes to
planning
next council
Council
meeting.
meeting.
yeah. Okay, Gino, thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Okay,
Thanks.
sorry.
Last night we had one of our shortest meetings, which was fine. And we had a public hearing for on-sale liquor for Sundays it's gonna be called the MC Garage. It's the Muddy Cow. It used to be, what the heck was that?
Moonshine whiskey.
Moonshine.
Yeah.
And so we voted yes on that. And then also for the MC Garage gambling permit, it's a temporary permit, and it's kind of cool. Coon Rapids Youth Hockey is going to train St. Francis Youth Hockey on how to do the gambling. So it's pretty cool that they're willing to do that, and the proceeds are going to go to St. Francis. And then we'll get to share whatever that works out to be. But other than that, it was cool that way. But that's all I got. So I didn't take up your time at all.
Okay,
No
well,
big deal.
and the capstone development, the preliminary
Yeah,
plat was approved,
that was
correct?
passed, yep. So,
So, and then they're working on,
yeah,
Whatever
I
they have
mean, Aaron said it could probably take a year even on that ditch situation, so.
There's a lot of environmental yet that needs to
A
be
lot of wetland stuff and all that.
finalized.
The next time we'll see them will be for the final plat, once they've gotten through all their
Once they got all their stuff
checklist.
done.
So, yep,
According to Aaron, it's a big checklist too, so
absolutely.
it'll be a
Yeah.
while. But
Okay.
thank you.
thank you very much. Okay, anybody else have anything else they wanna talk about? No? Okay.
It seems
Well-
like we got thrown into the fire on that first night, huh, Brian?
Oh, to be fair, there's been far worse burning
Yeah,
occasions.
I know, I'm sure, but,
Oh, yeah.
but, I mean,
Well,
This was just
to-
lengthy
Yes.
discussions, but it's good.
yeah.
I mean, I really do think that this is a great kind of incubator of democracy. And people can come up, they talk, they get their opinions heard, and then we'll discuss it. It's really nice.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Well, any
Second.
seconds? Okay. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody want to stay? Okay, good. We're adjourned.
You gotta hit the little banging thing up there.
Oh,